This is a Minecraft world generated outside of the game, and by almost all measure, it is identical to a real Minecraft world of the same seed. This is the Nether Star procedural terrain generator, a project I have been working on for nearly a month straight. Its purpose is to feed world data to a pathfinding program to make a path to the world border. This is part of a series on this channel called the Nether Star, and this is its most important step. We're going to talk about how it's made and what compromises it had to make. This was a crazy project. I've never put more effort into anything in my life. So here we go. But first, how did we get here? If you know, about a month ago, during the third episode of the Nether World Border series, I was thinking about making a series of drone ships to scan ahead of the main ship to build a real-time data map to be fed into a Pathfinder. Because around this time, I had the idea, why can't I just recreate the game? And so this project was me trying to prove myself wrong. Trying to prove that it was impossible. Instead, I proved it was possible. And that's where we are. So, this is how it was made. There's been a change in plan. The Nether, fundamentally, is just a representation of points, blocks, and the points, their positions, are calculated using several predictable mathematical functions, which is why whenever you enter a seed, you always get the exact same world. What if it was theoretically possible to recreate the entire generator in another programming language, where you'd have a block-to-block exact representation of the entire dimension at your disposal? I think this is going to be a better strategy. At this point, I started the very tedious process of going through all of the source code, trying to figure out what makes it tick. Here you can see that I'm looking at the biome source code, trying to figure out how biomes worked. Biomes were the first stage of the chunk generation pipeline that I implemented, and they were probably the most difficult for me to figure out. You can also see me trying and failing to use Vim on the left. It's somewhat ironic because at the end of this project, I actually have switched to Vim. Fuck. You see, this is why I don't do OOP anymore. Object-oriented programming causes this bullshit, okay? Because why is there 27 different... This project really helped me find my fondness for Java in my heart. Where is it? Where is the density function? I don't like Java. Java makes me angry. Why isn't it real? Why is it fake? Why do we... What is the point of having a function that isn't real? I don't understand. Okay. Calculot versus Microsoft Mojang Java. Go! Alright, so the first thing we need to crack are the density functions. A density function is anything that takes an x, y, and z coordinate and gives you a number. This number is used to represent terrain, pretty much everything random in the game, but we need to crack them. The density functions are really complex, there's a lot of stuff we need to do. Okay, density functions, they depend on something called normal noise. Normal noise depends on something called Perlin noise. Perlin noise depends on something called improved noise. Improved noise depends on two types of random generators, the Zoroastrian 128++ generator and the old LCG generator called the Legacy Random Source. The first thing I needed to do is to implement this random generator and all the noises above it. So the first thing I did was make the Zoroastrian random generator. We get 1-821-857-589. In here, 1-821-857-589. Minecraft and this are officially generating the exact same random numbers. Now that I had that implemented, I had to implement the first stages of noise. Minecraft uses something called Perlin noise. Perlin noise can make a height map of locations from a random number, which means it's very good for generating terrain with. 0.3359. 335. It's exactly the same. At this point, I had a big realization. Because of a few constants in the Nether biome configuration, it meant that the entire complex density got simplified to just a simple multiplication by the coordinates into the normal noise function. I'm in a basalt delta. Not just in a basalt delta, I'm like Look, I'm in a Salt Sand Valley, but it was literally the block. It was the block. It was the block. I had biomes now ticked off the chunk generation list. The next thing I decided to do was structures because it was closer to the start. I sort of accidentally went too far ahead with the biomes. So I started looking at the code and realizing it actually might not be that difficult. The structures are really difficult. So this is where I did make some compromises. A lot of structures are just bounding boxes, but here we go. So I got some pretty good news. Looking at this, it actually is pretty simple. Structures have a sort of grid that they spawn on. Each chunk has a mathematical function executes to detect if it has a chunk of a specific type. Because some chunks have the same bounds, they use assault to change the seed a little bit so they don't spawn at the same place. Fortunately, it's actually pretty easy to predict, but it also means that every few chunks there's an area where no structures can generate from the negative world border to the positive world border. And now it's making the Nether fortresses bounding boxes, which, by the way, this is one of the worst scripts I've ever seen in my life. I don't know why someone at Mojang thought this was fine. When doing Bastions, I ran into an issue. The jigsaw system was incredibly complicated and all of its data lived in MBT rather than in code. So for Bastions, honestly, I just decided to make a big bounding box that would include all of them, which means that Bastions aren't really generated by my mod. Nether fossils were easy enough because I had all the groundwork laid, but they do have something called the Beard of Fire in the game, which effectively creates this little skirt around them to make it more blend into the terrain. I would implement this later in noise generation. After structures, I started focusing on noise generation. So noise generation was actually easy enough. There's a config file in the Nether that dictates the entirety of the density function tree, and I took a lot of time to flatten that out into a procedural sequence of events. The hardest part was the interpolator. To avoid repeated computation, Minecraft only computes corners of a cube and then interpolates between them. This took me quite a while to figure out, but once I got it, I got this. What you see in front of you is beautiful. And it is by far the greatest creation I have ever made. This is a Minecraft chunk. This is another stage checked off the list. Next, I had to work on carvers. While it seems what happened would have been very difficult, the hardest part is yet to come. At this time, I also started looking for plans for my chunk generator. I ended up doing sequential dependency finding and then parallel generation. There were 3 things left on the list I had to complete: surface rules, carvers, and futures. Surface rules dictate what blocks go where. Carvers carve little caves, and futures, we're going to talk about them later. But if there's nothing else, let's start with carvers. Carvers in Minecraft work by using a series of mathematical functions. Really, it's just a bunch of math. The carvers are basically just a bunch of math that dictate how to carve through things. So it just does a bunch of math and creates a mask of stuff to remove from the chunk. It was actually really simple. So I did some basic changes to the renderer and started implementing the Beard of Fire. Fortunately, this was really simple. It only took me a few hours. Next, I started implementing surface rules. Surface rules are like density functions in the way that they're made, but fortunately they're a lot easier because they're procedural. There's just a series of instructions. And so it was actually really easy to recreate. It took me a while because there's a lot of stuff, but it was actually pretty enjoyable. It's also worth noting that after I made all these systems like Minecraft, I went through and did some optimization. For example, here, I cached all the results of a column in the surface rules that dramatically decreases how much performance it takes. I also decided to redo the debugger renderer in Remade. So instead of just pushing a bunch of triangles, what I do is I build a mesh using unsafe code and direct C-axis. I actually, if you go to the renderer, I actually do use libc and alloc to allocate memory, which is pretty fun. I started doing some optimization using a sampler to see what my hot paths were. I didn't do as much right here, but later on I do get it down a lot. I did some recoloring. Holy mother of pearl. This is beautiful. The only thing left in the list was futures. But there's a problem. A really big problem. Look at these two screenshots. These are both of the same world. The same seed. The exact same seed, and the terrain is different. This was a huge problem. So I went through and I had to reprogram it. And I had to reprogram Minecraft with a mod in order to fix the issue and make it deterministic, which means unfortunately it is modded. But with that, it was time for the final boss. Futures.